Good morning, and thank you for attending Police Headquarters. My name is Constable Carolyn DeClute, and I'm here today to introduce Homicide Detective Sergeant Hank Idsinga, who will be updating you on the Bruce McArthur investigation.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. I will be providing you with an update on the Bruce McArthur investigation, where we have been, where we are now, and where we are going. As you know, on January the 18th, Bruce McArthur was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in relation to the deaths of Salim Essen and Andrew Kinsman. Since then, we have continued our investigation, including searches of numerous properties associated to Mr. McArthur, a review of material evidence, and interviews with dozens of people, many of whom have come forward to us. I do want to offer some clarity on the intersection between Projects Houston, Prism, and the homicide cases. We know the community has been and continues to be deeply concerned about these past investigations, specifically the seriousness with which we looked at these cases. Houston, which ran from November of 2012 until April of 2014, identified 3 missing persons from the gay village and took thorough steps to try and locate 40-year-old Skanda Navaratnam, who was last seen on September 6, 2010 in the area of Church and Wellesley, 42-year-old Abdul Basir Faizi, otherwise known as Basir, who was reported missing to Peel Regional Police on December 29th of 2010. He was last seen in the area of Church and Wellesley. And 58-year-old Majid Kayhan, also known as Hamid, who was last seen on October 14th, 2012, and was known to frequent the area of Church and Wellesley. This project included the canvassing of hospitals and shelters, reviewing video surveillance, conducting ground and water searches, interviews, and searches of online and cell phone activity, just to name a few of the investigative steps. At the conclusion of the project, no evidence was found which would classify anyone as a suspect in any criminal offense relating to the disappearances. On August the 14th last year, Project Prism was formed specifically to investigate the disappearances of Andrew Kinsman and Salim Essen. The project team includes members of Project Houston. Although Project Prism's focus was not to reinvestigate the 3 earlier missing men, the investigators were certainly cognizant and mindful of the occurrences. In September of 2017, Mr. Bruce McArthur was identified by Project Prism investigators as someone to be included or excluded as being involved in the disappearance of Andrew Kinsman. Further steps were taken between September and January of 2018 to investigate Mr. McArthur. Public safety was always our top priority. On Wednesday, January the 17th, investigators uncovered evidence which provided them with grounds to believe that Mr. McArthur was not only responsible for the death of Andrew Kinsman, but was also responsible for the death of Mr. Essen. Further evidence was uncovered which led investigators to believe that Mr. McArthur was responsible for the deaths of other unidentified victims. On Thursday, January the 18th, Mr. McArthur was arrested by members of Project Prism. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in relation to Mr. Kinsman and Mr. Essen. Today, Mr. McArthur was brought back before the courts. Mr. McArthur has now been charged with 3 additional counts of first-degree murder. These new charges are in relation to the murders of Majid Kayhan, Saroush Marmoudi, and Dean Lissowick. I will spell those names for you. Majid Kayhan, M-A-J-E-E-D, K-A-Y-H-A-N, Saroush Marmoudi, S-O-R-O-U-S-H, M-A-R-M-U-D-I, and Dean Lissowick, D-E-A-N-L-I-S-O-W-I-C-K. Majid Kayhan was one of the males whose disappearance was investigated by Project Houston. Saroush Marmoudi was 50 years old when he was reported missing in Scarborough by his family in 2015. Dean Lissawick was never reported as missing, but we believe that he was murdered between May of 2016 and July of 2017. Dean was born in 1973 and would have been 47 years old at the time of his death. Investigators continue to search the residence of Mr. McArthur at 95 Thorncliffe and a residence at 53 Mallory, which Mr. McArthur used for storage. Assistance from outside agencies, including the Ontario Provincial Police, Ontario Forensic Pathology Services, and the Centre of Forensic Sciences, is being utilized to search these premises. To date, the dismembered remains of at least 3 individuals have been recovered from the backyard of the residence at 53 Mallory Crescent. These remains have not yet been identified. As has been previously reported, Mr. McArthur earned his living as a landscaper. Investigators have identified approximately 30 properties within Toronto where Mr. McArthur worked. We have contacted owners of these properties and have conducted searches at the majority of them. If anyone who has employed Mr. McArthur as a landscaper at their residence in the past is not contacted by investigators, I would ask that you contact us as soon as possible so that we can make arrangements to search your yards and gardens. I thank all of these homeowners for their ongoing cooperation, and I wish to assure them that we will respect their privacy. Dozens of tips have poured in via Crime Stoppers, via our dedicated tip line, 416-808-2021, emails and voicemails. Tips have come in from around the world. We are actively following up on all of these tips and encourage anyone with any information to contact us as soon as possible. Mr. McArthur is alleged by investigators to have committed the 5 murders. The case is now before the courts. We know that many in the community are struggling to understand and process these developments. We would encourage you to talk to your friends and loved ones. Our LGBTQ liaison officer, Daniel Bontenot, who's here today, and the service's LGBTQ Community Consultative Committee are available to anyone who requires support. Lastly, I want to thank those who have come forward. If anyone has not heard from us or they have information related to Mr. McArthur, please call us at any of the previously mentioned numbers or via Crime Stoppers or the Homicide Squad.
Detective Sergeant Idsinga, is it fair now to call Bruce McArthur an alleged serial killer?
It is, yes.
What led to the new
What is
charges?
the MO between all these men? What is it that you see as far as a common thread?
Well, I think the common thread in Houston were all 3 men were from the gay village and associated to the gay village, and they were all men of Middle Eastern descent. Unfortunately, I can't continue with that common thread looking at Mr. Lissawick and Mr. Mahmoudi. So,
What can you tell us about those victims? How did he get to know them? Were they men that he met online? Can you give us an idea of when they were reported missing?
as I said, Mr. Lissawick was never reported missing. We identified him, and Mr. Mahmoudi was reported missing in 2015, and I'm not going to get into specifics about what their relationship was with Mr. McArthur this time. Sorry?
What was it led to the new charges?
Well, as I stated a week and a half ago, we had some evidence of further victims, and once we identified those victims, we laid the charges.
What's that evidence?
I can't get into specifics of that.
Detective, you already have 5 counts of first-degree murder here. Is it police's belief, detectives' belief, that there could be even more beyond this, and do you have any sort of idea as to how many more there could be? If there is more?
We do believe there are more, and I have no idea how many more there are going to be.
You said that those remains were unidentified, the 3 people that you found. Are you saying that those are people apart from these 5 victims?
We don't know that yet.
Is your
So
investigation?
if you could explain, sorry, so they could be belonging to these, why can they not be identified?
They can't be identified because they're skeletal remains, and they have been dismembered, so we have to wait for DNA tests and we have to get DNA tests from the people who are outstanding and their family members before we can identify those remains.
Does this investigation now lead away from the gay community? Did I hear you say that? But not just victims from that community?
I can't get too specific on that right now. As I said, the last two victims that we've identified don't quite fit the profile of the earlier victims. So, and as I've said, we don't know how many more victims there are going to be, but it certainly encompasses more than the gay community. It encompasses the city of Toronto.
Where do you go then from here?
We continue, as I said, we're investigating some 30 properties. We believe we have recovered more remains. We believe there are more remains at some of these properties that we're working to recover. These remains are all brought to the Center of Forensic Sciences, and the people there are working hard to identify the remains. And depending on the identification of the remains and further evidence that we uncover, we'll lay more charges as we get them.
Do you have much information as to how they met the two victims to identify?
Not that I'm going to get into here, sorry.
And roughly, how many missing person reports would you be looking at? How far back would you go? Just out of thoroughness.
Out of thoroughness, obviously, Mr. Cahan went missing in 2012, and he was profiled during Houston with two men who were missing in 2010. We are going back at least to 2010, and if we have to go back further than that, we will.
And give like the sense of how many missing reports, of course, I don't know, I imagine a huge amount, roughly how many reports you guys be looking through or at least reading?
There are dozens of reports outstanding in the city of Toronto.
Did you think that these bodies are buried on people's properties where he worked? Is that what you're getting at? That they could be all over the city of Toronto?
That's a possibility that they're buried. Right now, where we've recovered the bodies are from large planters, and they've been hidden in the bottom of these planters. So we've seized quite a few planters from around the city, and we'll continue to do that. There are at least 2 sites that we do want to excavate where people might be buried. We just don't know yet.
Where are those, Detective Sergeant, where were the addresses of those?
Sorry?
Those properties that you want to excavate, where are they?
I'm not going to divulge the location of those properties.
Are any of them in public park or public area?
Not that we've found yet.
So, Dave, if you are somebody who's had your home landscaped by Mr. McArthur over the last 5, 10, however many years, what should people do? I mean, I'm sure there's people out there who have had their homes landscaped by Mr. McArthur who maybe are panicking a little bit or feeling uneasy about it.
Again, I'd ask them to call us as soon as possible if they're not already on the list. We do have access to his client list, and we were working through that. We have had additional people call in, and we've worked through that. Our team's been working very long hours since Wednesday the 17th, and this weekend consisted mainly of canvassing those addresses and searching them.
What cooperation have you had from Roger Ford and his business partners who also work in a landscape business?
Mr. Horan's been very cooperative with us.
Detective, congratulations first of all to you and your team and all the people that aren't here who helped to do this. But I have a question for you. Since he's been arrested, have you had the opportunity to interview Mr. McArthur? Has he submitted to an interview, or do you anticipate he will? Any cooperation at all from him?
We have, but I can't get into specifics of how those interviews went.
Detective, you said one of the individuals was not reported missing, one of the alleged victims. Can you elaborate on how he became part of this investigation?
Through the evidence that we uncovered on January the 17th, we had several victims that were unidentified. We were able to identify him as being one of those victims. I can't get any more into specifics about how that happened, but like I said, he was not reported missing. He was an occupant of the shelter system in Toronto. So
Maybe they've been photographs? Maybe that's to make a additional.
again, I'm not going to comment on that. Sorry.
Where were the planters found?
Amongst these properties,
The one in Leaside?
there are several from Leaside, yes.
But you said
How many planters? Sorry.
You said the remains of all 3 missing people that you've identified you have yet to identify came from Mallory Crest.
So far,
So those planters were Mallory, correct?
some of them, yes.
Are there other planters that you've recovered?
There are other planters. We have over a dozen planters from various addresses around the city.
So how many search warrants of those 30 properties you're looking at are you now executing?
We've gone with consent on all of these properties. The homeowners have been very good and understanding, and like I said, we're in the neighborhood of 30 properties.
Would you expand your investigation of like jurisdiction in regards to missing people as well?
Absolutely, yes.
How far would you expand this?
Well, we're cognizant of people who may be reported by families where they might not know that the people frequent the village in Toronto. So they could come from anywhere in the GTA. If anyone comes into Toronto for an event such as Pride and then get reported missing back in their hometowns with the complainants not being aware that they were in Toronto, that's obviously something we have to look at. So we've got several different avenues. Like I said, as we sort out these remains and get them identified, we may find more people who were never reported missing. We may find people who were reported missing on.
Well, do you find that there are those that came here, say, for Pride for another reason and never returned home? Are you finding that has happened?
We haven't had one specific like that yet.
Detective, in terms of, there are lots of scenes looking for bodies. His apartment that you have searched, would that be the location where you believe that most of the crimes were committed, where the bodies were killed, where the people were killed?
I won't commit to that yet. We're very carefully going through that apartment. I checked in with the investigators there, the forensic identification officers there yesterday, and we're still collecting trace evidence going into that apartment. We haven't even had the opportunity yet to do a thorough search of that apartment.
Detective Sergeant, I spoke to a number of people who live in the area of 53 Mallory who say that he was often seen there with a younger man. Do you believe that Mr. McArthur acted alone, or are you looking at the possibility that he acted with someone else?
We're always looking at the possibility that he may have acted with someone else, but I have no evidence to support that notion right now.
Has Mr. McArthur been at all forthcoming or helpful when it comes to locating the remains of these men?
I'm not going to comment on what Mr. McArthur has or hasn't said to us.
Have you at least tried to convince him that things might be easier if he were to cooperate with the investigation?
Again, I'm not going to comment on any interactions with Mr. McArthur.
Could you add any additional detail about any connection between the found between the two original missing men, Idsinga and Neveranda, and Mr. McArthur?
Not at this time, no.
Do you anticipate those charges being sort of?
If we can establish that they were the victims of murder on the part of Mr. McArthur, then charges will be laid, yes.
Just a point of clarification, Detective. You said that Mr. McArthur didn't become a suspect until September. Are you telling us that he hadn't been a suspect during Project Houston as well?
That's correct. And when you say he became a suspect in September, I really want to delineate between investigating a missing person and investigating a homicide. Just because someone is missing doesn't necessarily make it a homicide, and there are no criminal offenses in relation to missing persons investigations until foul play is established. So in September, it's still a missing person investigation. Until we can establish that there has been foul play and we can attach a criminal offense to that foul play, that's when someone would become a suspect.
That's a very good explanation. Maybe you could just, we often heard on the radar, which I don't think many people understand. Can you maybe just explain in general terms what that means? Because I've always said that doesn't mean somebody's a suspect on the radar. Can you maybe explain that?
Well, I think the best phrase to explain it is we have to include people in our investigation, and we have to exclude people in our investigations. And that includes witnesses, persons of interest, and suspects. But in the court system, the terms we deal with are exactly that. Are they a witness, are they a person of interest, or are they a suspect? And like I said, in a missing person occurrence, unless there's foul play involved that we have to be able to prove with evidence, people are not going to be assigned those particular terms yet.
Detective, have you spoken to the family of these three new victims for which McArthur is now charged, and what is their reaction now that they know that that connection has been made?
We have. You know, all of the families are, of course, shocked, not just these three, but the earlier two as well. I'm sure the family and friends of the outstanding gentleman from Project Houston are in shock listening to this and reading about all of this. We have a lot of support services in place for these people, and without getting too much into specifics, I'm very thankful to them for their help and cooperation and understanding during this investigation.
2 more questions?
What has this case been like for investigators? be going through all of this?
Yeah, it's very draining on all the investigators. We have approximately 12 people just on the project team, but we also have involved forensic investigators, canine units, divisional personnel to guard crime scenes and whatnot. And obviously, the City of Toronto has never seen anything like this. So it is very tiring and very draining for everyone who's involved.
How many resources do you know are being thrown at this? Because this is obviously now a growing investigation with multiple locations. If you were to say how many officers, how many men on the ground are working on this case?
The resources that are being thrown at it, everything that we have. I'd call it unprecedented type of investigation. I've seen large-scale investigations before with dozens and dozens of officers working on them. We've never seen anything quite like this with the number of crime scenes that we have to process, guard, and of course judicial authorizations where required. So.
Detective Sergeant, just if you can, characterize for us what kind of case is it when you talk about the case of Bruce McArthur? When people say, how would you describe this case?
What kind of case is it? It's a serial killer, alleged serial killer, and he's taken some steps to cover his tracks, and we have to uncover these victims and identify these victims, and hopefully get some good news or some closing news to the families of these victims.
How many years back did we first go? Our earliest were 2012. Do you think it goes back further?
That's something we're definitely looking at, yes.
Is this going to be worse than the Picton case?
Sorry?
Is this going to be worse than the Picton case?
I don't know that yet.
Can you just go back to what you were commenting on a couple of questions ago about the officers that you have involved in this case? Obviously, it's very graphic. There's dismembered bodies, lots of remains. What are your officers going through? Or, I know you guys have systems set up to deal with things like that in terms of counseling and that kind of thing, but it sounds like it's something that is very trying for the officers who are doing this. They're seeing things that are very upsetting.
Yes, obviously, and you're dealing with a profound sense of pride in bringing closure to this case, but also you've got everything scattered at your feet that you have to uncover and deal with. So it's very tough for the officers involved. Absolutely.
I just have a question. You mentioned about finding the one suspect, the one victim, so that wasn't on any report missing. And I wonder, obviously, you have no mind to it, but is that where this could go to, where there's lots of these indigenous type people that are in trouble, that kind of thing? Is that a concern?
Absolutely, and it's something that we're looking at.
Would people that maybe haven't, have a relative that's missing and they never actually have reported missing, would that be the time to do it? Or would that help?
Absolutely. If anyone finds themselves in that situation, please call your local police division and get that report filed as soon as you can.
What shelter was that gentleman staying at?
I can't get specific on that, sorry.
What did he tell you that he appeared to know some of the alleged victims quite well, and others he appears to have known from shelters located as transients, with men. What did it tell you that experience in relationship with the alleged victims?
Well, again, I can't get into the specifics of his relationship with these victims prior to him actually killing them. We're still uncovering that, and we're still working on that. So.
Detective Sergeant, you've been able to say that you've identified, you've got the remains of 3 people, but you say he is responsible for the first-degree murder of 5. Was Mr. McArthur cataloging his victims? Is that how you're able to say these are the 5 people you believe he killed?
Again, as I've said, the remains that we've recovered are of victims who were dismembered. There's at least the remains of 3 people amongst those body parts.
But you have names of 5 people. You say
We do.
So how are you able to come up with those names? Did you actually leave a list, or?
Again, it comes back to the question Steve asked, and I can't comment on that. Okay?
That concludes today's conference. Thank you for attending.